They say losses are a part of life, that the only way to rise back up is to go down in the first place. But as a fan of the sport, as a fan of MMA, there always has been that type of loss that just made you think, you know what, I'm done with this sport. That type of loss that just made you stare at your screen at 2 a.m. after the fights are over and just question your whole life, question your whole identity, because being a fan of this one athlete, this one fighter was rooted in you, was ingrained in your self-identity. And I know what I'm talking about because I've lived through quite a few of them, but some of them hurt more than others, like really more than others. For example, Aljamain Sterling versus Sean O'Malley. This might be an unpopular one, and to be honest, I got over it recently. But at the time, this was soul crushing for me. I was so invested in Aljamain's career and just seeing him defy the odds every time. And I know he was kind of fluking his way to every win he had, but to see him get into the conversation of Bantamweight GOAT after like a year prior to that, he was kind of looked at as a joke, but then got the revenge against Jan, and then beat TJ, but it was a fluky one, and then beat Cejudo, and then people were kind of starting to look at him like, damn, he's actually put quite a few good wins together, and the win over Corey Sanhagen that aged super well. Like, I was so invested in Aljamain, and I thought he was gonna run through O'Malley. I genuinely thought this was gonna be an easy fight for him, and that he was gonna go up, retire of bantamweight, have the fight with Volk. And to me, this was the ultimate win. This was the ultimate laugh in the face to every doubters, because the guy that everybody was clowning, Aljamain Sterling, Dana White confirmed to us at the press conference that if he were to get through Sean O'Malley, he was going to get the Volk fight. He was going to be in front of Topuria for Volkanovski, and even Volkanovski said it, that he might have been in front of Topuria if he beat O'Malley. And then he just got chinned like that. He just ran across the cage like a runaway autistic kid and got clipped by O'Malley. And the fact that this was supposed to be the best stylistic matchup for him too, and that he was rushed into it. But you know what? I'm not one of those guys that trash on O'Malley for like, Aljamain was rushed into it, because Aljamain accepted it. He said no, 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 and then got pressured by Hunter Campbell like we saw in the documentary. He was gaslighted into taking this fight, and as a grown man, if another man can gaslight you like that, you deserve to be gaslit. Like, you deserve what you got. So yeah, I'm not sorry for him that much, but watching it live, I was like, ain't no way this just happened. No way this just happened. O'Malley just clipped Aljamain Sterling like that. And even though I knew he had no chance against Volk, I knew like it was an easy fight for Volkanovski, but in my head I was just the fact that he got there is a laugh in the face of everyone. It's a laugh in the face of everyone. Because we called him an actor, and then he got the revenge against Jan. He was still being doubted. Then TJ broke his arm, but that's kind of on him. And then Cejudo was a good win. People trying to make it seem like, oh, Cejudo was coming off a layoff and it was a split decision. Like, Cejudo had everything on paper to beat Aljamain Sterling. And Aljamain, like, he looked really good. He took him down and he did his thing against Cejudo. And I don't think this fight was as close as people make it be, but still a very good win. But then we got O'Malley. And O'Malley, we already knew what type of bullshit he was on. He was, as soon after, like, 2 days after winning the belt, he was already talking about going to boxing. He was already talking about moving up, when Aljamain was actually clearing up his division. Except maybe the thing with Merab. I know this got on some people's nerves, and they were against Aljamain because of it. Because just fight Merab. He's the number one. But they're friends. I get it. But yeah, Aljamain Sterling losing to Sean O'Malley, and then just being snubbed out of a rematch. Like, not even being in a discussion for a rematch. This hurt me. Genuinely hurt me. Next up, where do I even start with this one? Charles Oliveira. This one was special for me. Like, you know, he was special. But his loss against Islam Makhachev, for me, it broke me. I closed my laptop and I just went to sleep because I couldn't deal with it. I didn't have the tools emotionally to deal with this. After everything that happened to him, just being put in a title fight against Chandler, and everybody was kind of clowning on that fight, calling it Dustin Poirier's division, and that they're just fighting for Habib like Habib's leftovers. And then going into the Poirier fight, people were saying it's Poirier's division. Poirier could have took the title fight instead of the Conor trilogy, but no, he decided to go for the money fight, and he paid the price afterwards. Because while he was out there making money with Conor, Charles Oliveira became the champion, and he was hungry and determined to prove that he was the champion. So going into the Dustin fight, everybody was counting him out. Everybody was saying that Dustin was gonna win, and Dustin did well for the first round. But Charles Oliveira rose up and he submitted Dustin Poirier, and then people started saying like, "Damn, this guy is actually on the mean streak right now." And then going into the Justin Gaethje fight, losing his belt to the scale, but everybody kind of seeing him as the champion still. Like even Joe Rogan and everything, and the mess with the scale. People were saying they were being like misbalanced or something. And going out there and just beating Gaethje in the first round, and like the hype of Oliveira. At the time, I think Oliveira was like the second biggest star in the UFC. Genuinely like the second biggest star in the UFC, maybe even more than Adesanya, I think. Even more than Adesanya at the time. So yeah, he was over the moon. So when they put him against Makhachev, a guy who didn't necessarily deserve it, I guess I'm gonna get some backlash for saying this, but at the time I thought that like maybe Dariush could have gotten it, or like somebody else. But hey, Makhachev was always stylistically the best fight. But in terms of like deserving it, I thought Makhachev didn't have any impressive wins. Generally, like his best win was Drew Dober, I think, at the time. So I was like, yeah, why not? But the reward for Oliveira was not worth the risk, in my opinion, because if he beat Makhachev, people were gonna say, yeah, he was never Khabib. He just had gotten knocked out a couple years ago, and he didn't beat anybody, and whatever. And at the time, Oliveira was really being compared to Khabib. Like people were arguing. There were real arguments on Instagram and Twitter, whatever. Like who's the greatest lightweight of all time? And people had solid arguments for Oliveira, like about his career, how he really faced everybody. He was in UFC at 21 years old, fighting the best of the best. Yeah, he lost, but now he's like on a 12-fight win streak. Like, yeah, there were real arguments for Oliveira being the greatest lightweight of all time. And to have Makhachev just go out there and like do his thing against him, like skill-wise, he was always up there. It was evident. But let's say like the reward of that fight, like I said, the reward of that fight, if Oliveira beat him, it was not going to be as much as the risk. People were just going to dismiss Makhachev like he was never supposed to be there in the first place. But if Makhachev won, then he beat Oliveira. So this one hurt me to another level, just like the Aljamain one. Now for Bubby Knuckles, it's kind of bittersweet because at the time he lost to Dricus, I was really like, damn, how could this happen? I couldn't bring myself to believe this was my reality. We had to be in the multiverse. And Adesanya might have really manifested this. But afterward, with what happened, like with what if I knew back then what I know now, I would have been happy, because Dricus turned out to be the funniest guy in the UFC, making Adesanya and Strickland cry, and just having entertaining fights after entertaining fights, winning the belt, submitting Adesanya, clowning him from A to Z in the press conference, in the fights, in the build-up. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this was definitely the most entertaining outcome we could have had. Because if Robert Whitaker won, then we would have had Whitaker Adesanya 3. And, you know, now we had Strickland because Du Plessis had to pull out and everything. So, looking back at it, this was the best thing that could have happened. But at the time, oh my God. I looked at Whitaker like, oh damn, my GOAT might be done. My GOAT might be done. And I just stared at the ceiling, looked at the stars, and just questioned my life. But now, even for Whitaker, I think this was the best thing that could have happened. Because Whitaker was kind of in a place in his career where, I'm not going to say he was in limbo or that he was a gatekeeper, but there was no realistic path to the Adesanya fight that was going to be hyped. Like, we knew how that fight was going to go. He arguably won the second fight, but we kind of saw how that fight would have played out. Like, they both were familiar with each other. We weren't expecting none much different. But now, after this loss, Whitaker really turned the switch. He went out there to kill, and we saw it. His fights with Paulo Costa and Ikram were totally different from the Robert Whitaker we had in a couple years prior to that. He's going out there now to kill people. And that's something I think Dricus caused in him. That's a reaction to the loss to Dricus. So that's a positive thing. That's a really good outcome. But at the time, don't lie, you too, me too, everybody else was devastated by this. And talking about bittersweet for this last one, I think the majority of the fan base felt the same way as me. When Adesanya knocked out Alex Pereira, left him dead on the canvas, and then started emoting on his kid. This one is the loss that hurt me the most. It hurt me the most, more than Aljamain, more than charlesoliveira, more than Robert Whitaker, because this guy, Alex Pereira, I saw as a breath of fresh air in the UFC. Like the intimidation, like Joe Rogan would say, everything around Alex Pereira was like, damn, he's a two division champion in glory. He beat Adesanya before. He's bigger than everyone. He's doing everyone dirty. He just seems to have plot armor. There was a real like main character feeling to Alex Pereira, and to see him get slumped out cold like that, oh my god, oh my god. But just like for Robert Whitaker, I think this loss is the best thing that could have happened to Pereira, because with what happened afterwards, looking back at it, this was the best possible outcome. We had entertainment in two divisions rather than just have Alex at middleweight and like heavyweight and like moving back and forth and probably losing because the weight cuts and everything. No, we had Alex losing. He won the belt at middleweight. That's an achievement. Went on to light heavyweight, did his thing, and is still doing his thing. Is probably, in my opinion, the pound for pound in the UFC. And in middleweight, he let middleweight move on with entertaining fights with Sean Strickland, Dricus du Plessis, Adesanya. So because of Alex Pereira losing to Adesanya in the second fight, we had a couple years, like maybe 2 years of entertainment in two divisions. But to see him lose like that against Adesanya too, knowing that Adesanya was probably going to get the last laugh because they were not going to fight again. Adesanya was definitely snubbing Alex Pereira out of a rematch. And to see him lose like that to Adesanya, this hurt my soul. But this only made it sweeter when Strickland, who became Alex Pereira's friend, who trained with Alex Pereira to beat Adesanya, did what he did to Adesanya. But yeah, to see Pereira being knocked out cold by Adesanya like that, Adesanya clowning on his kid, whew, like this was a lot to digest. This was a lot to look at. But I guess Adesanya, who thought he was gonna get the final laugh, who thought he was gonna run away with the win and just go into the history books, while Alex Pereira was just gonna be one of the guy that like went by and people forgot about him. I thought too. I thought that Alex Pereira was done. Like, how the fuck are you gonna get knocked out like that at middleweight and 2 months later go against Jan Blachowicz? I thought he was gonna get knocked out again, and then Yuri Prohaska, and then Jamal Hill. I'm like, damn, like Alex Pereira, it's not looking good for him. But to go and do what he did, to go on to have this career and be one of the greatest of all time, that's what I'm talking about. Bittersweet. At the time it was bitter, but now it is sweet. But you guys let me know what losses affected you the most. For me, I think those four are definitely in my top list. And maybe I'll think of some other one, but off the top of my head, those four are the one that really affected me. But let me know which one affected you guys. And thanks for watching. See you guys soon.